Not even an accident can stop this interview. This had to happen.
This interview. That's why I said I have to do it.
Welcome to the second Noticias Newswire and Hispanic PR blog, Hispanic Marketing and PR webinar. I'm Bill Gato. I'm CEO of Noticias Newswire. It's the nation's only Latino-owned press release distribution service with a niche focus on the Hispanic market. And I'm also the co-editor, along with Jay Cruz, of the Hispanic PR blog. It's a trade publication covering the Hispanic PR and marketing industry. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing a Latina Hispanic PR pioneer, Roxana Lissa, based in Los Angeles, but originally from Argentina. Let me start at a point in your career, 2016, when you sold an agency that you had launched in the 90s called RL Public Relations, RL PR. And you sold it to United Collective. I think it's still around, and it's called Rox United. And that was a historic merger. It consolidated 5 agencies. What was it about the industry or the opportunity at the time, or both, that motivated you to make that major decision at that time in 2016?
I think it was in 2015, late 2015 or early 2016, when it was at an ANA conference. And the whole discussion in that conference was the total market, and how, a lot of the general market agencies were really acquiring either Hispanic shops. And you will see that brands at that time were really focusing on the total market strategy. They were not interested so much in really having the niche marketing agencies, the smaller boutique agencies, which it was my agency, right? So after really representing a lot of the top brands for many, many years, I started seeing that the smaller agencies were going to have a harder time to adjust, to adapt to this new dynamic, right, that was happening at the time. And that was a moment where I said, and I was approached many times by different agencies, by bigger firms and big advertising agencies and big PR agencies. And it was a particular time, a moment in time where I said, well, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to let go of what I was able to build and what I accomplished, and really learn this new integrated model, which is United Collective, a group of agencies, digital, public relations, advertising, and learn more about how PR can be part of that new integrated proposition, right? So that was the main decision why I decided to sell. And John Gallegos and I have been, good friends for many, many years.
From Gallegos Group, I remember. Yeah.
Yes, John Gallegos is the CEO of United Collective. And I remember giving him a call after that ANA conference. And I said, John, let's chat. I think, maybe I'm interested in you to buy my company. And we started talking, and that was it.
I want to ask you about that transition from being your own boss at RL to joining a larger collective of agencies. But before I do that, just since you brought it up, the total market approach that was very popular 2015, 2014, 2016, I remember those days. I would go to those conventions, AHA and ANA, and I hear that those were the big issues of the day for Hispanic agencies. What was that? Can you, for the benefit of those younger PR professionals that may not know what that was about, can you explain what that was about and why that gained traction for a while?
Yes, and the total market approach gained traction more in the advertising world, right? When all of a sudden you will see big agencies, right, developing campaigns, and they will call them multicultural campaigns and total market campaigns, where they will be pretty much generic campaigns. If you ask me, it will be generic campaigns that will have some nuances or some elements of Hispanic advertising or African American advertising inserted into the overall campaign. But if you ask me, it was like going back to the 80s, right? It was going back to the 80s, where you will see these generic campaigns that really in many cases didn't resonate, right, with a lot of our audiences. And we see now a shift back, right? We see now a shift back again to to more culture driven approach. I see that happening with many companies. So that's what happened. You will see the big general market ad agencies coming up with campaigns that in many cases didn't really resonate. They wouldn't be interesting. In some cases, we have seen successes, successful campaigns. but for the most part, it wasn't really captivating audiences.
So was there a point where the general market agencies, I guess they imagined, hey, we've got access to the same research, and we can just kind of translate these commercials, and maybe it'll work, and we'll save some budget, But
Exactly.
at some point, they realized, okay, so we've got access to the research, but let's acquire Hispanic-focused agencies to give it a little bit more authenticity. Is that what was happening at the time that you decided to?
I mean, we've seen acquisitions, but also we've seen an infusion of, creative, like junior creative directors, Latino creative directors joining these big agencies, and then these big agencies expecting that, one person, right, can come up with, with a whole campaign, when in essence, it's the same thing that we have been talking about, for the last 20 years, right? For the last 25 years, it's not something that is organic in its essence. It's something that, seems to be a little bit of an afterthought, right? And of course, we have seen progress, and of course, we have seen agencies doing really good work and committing, right, to the growth and to hiring the right people and all of those things. And in public relations, which is my discipline, that I can speak more probably than than advertising. I think we have seen, the growth of definitely general market agencies, building these multicultural practices, right? We've seen Edelman and Fishman Hiller and Golin Harris, which has a very successful practice for many, many years. Some agencies change over time, right? But we have seen, consistency. And that has put the smaller agencies, at a disadvantage, right? Because obviously the big brands, a lot of the big agencies, have the big brands as clients, right? So obviously they will rather probably work with the same company, than hiring multiple.
Right.
There isn't one size fit all type of model. We have seen different things over the years, but I think, going back to your first question, that's what prompted me, to make that change.
Okay, so now you make that decision, and now you're part of the collective. What was that like? Was it hard to adjust to now be part of it? Where you're making your own decisions, and now you've got to.
It was hard, and I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about how hard it is after having your own company for so many years, to let go of your old way of doing things, because the goal of selling your company is also to adjust to a new way and learning a new way of doing things. And for me, it was very difficult, and I think it was a good lesson for me to learn. I remember John giving me this book saying, what helped you get there is not going to get you get here, and sometimes we as presidents were so set in our ways and in our way of doing things, and it was a hard adjustment. It was hard. I was president still, right, of Rox United. But it was difficult. It was difficult to let go. And even if I had a lot of the freedoms and a lot of, freedoms to pretty much handle, my clients and new business and different things, being part of the advertising structure is challenging for a PR professional.
So if there's a PR professional out there, Hispanic professional out there who's considering a similar move, looking back now, what advice would you give them?
That's a good question.
What tips would you give them?
Well, I think you need to really learn about the advertising world first, and learn about the different disciplines, and really, and that's what a great learning experience for me was. The importance of a solid strategy department and creative, and and the research piece, and all of that coming up together into creating, a really solid campaign. I think PR is still, what I love about public relations is more dynamic, is really in essence more entrepreneurial. Our discipline is entrepreneurial because we have to act super fast and come up with ideas really fast without the rigor, right, that sometimes is needed in that agency. So I think my advice will be, be ready to just have more process in your day-to-day, because I think in advertising agencies, while they're all trying to move faster now because the needs of the market are faster and the needs of clients are certainly faster, there is still this flexibility that we have as PR people, that working within an advertising agency is more difficult. So that would be the first piece of advice that I will give them.
Okay. Now, before I transition to Blue PR, during your years that, of having running RL, you also launched a sports marketing agency called Sportivo. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, Sportivo was an idea that I thought about with Mario Flores, who has been a great partner and an amazing partner for many, many years. And at the time, we were working with Nike. Nike has been a very important client of mine for over 15 years. And we were actually the agency of record for Nike back then. And it was just a lunch meeting, and Mario was always so passionate about sports, and that's what he loved. And I said, well, Mario, why don't we come up with a sports agency, together, and you can, be the day to day, and you can be my partner, and I give you the resources, that we have with our LPR. We give you all access to, staff and resources and everything. And I think it was more like something that I feel like I love seeing the passion that he has for sports and providing that opportunity and that avenue also for him to fulfill, this passion that he had, that was very powerful and very inspiring for me to see that someone was so passionate about, and at the same time create a business opportunity around it. And that's what the essence of Sportivo was.
And it's still around, right? Sportivo is still around.
Yeah. After I sold RLPR, so Mario took charge of Sportivo on its own.
Okay. So then you left RL for a while, and I think you were consulting. And then around COVID, you did you did like a 2-year stint at Census.
Yes.
And you launched a practice there, and you worked heavily on a COVID awareness campaign. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. So after a couple of years at Rox United, I had some personal stuff, going with my ex-husband at the time. So I decided to take some time off, and I was consulting. So I was able to consult with EFG Entertainment Fusion Group, and I helped, handle the day-to-day operations for the agency, which was a lot of fun and a lot of entertainment clients. And at the time, Jose Villa asked me to consult with him on some projects and some new business things. And he figured out that I was on my own again, and I was consulting. And he asked me if I knew some folks, that can help being part of the PR practice. And after working with United Collective, I said, you know what, I really learned a lot about what it means to bring the PR practice into an established advertising agency. So let me put a plan together for you. And that's what it was. So we came up with a plan together, and I created and I helped launch what is called today an amplification practice. And the amplification practice, again, with the growth of social media, content, and influencer marketing, was divided into two, right? So we have traditional public relations, traditional PR, which is still very valid, and especially with government accounts, and I can touch on that a little bit later. And also we had content and influencer marketing and experiential as well, right? So we had those two arms. I oversaw those two arms, and then with specific professionals underneath each practice, right? So, and we will still tap into the different services offered by Census, but it was pretty much an entity, within Census. And immediately after I joined, Census secured the California Department of Public Health as a client in the midst of COVID. And that was an incredible experience. Census was one of 150 professionals, and I was one of 150 professionals really dedicated to really work on the COVID campaign, particularly in the Latino markets. So our responsibility was to, educate Latinos about safety, about how to stay safe during COVID, and then all the vaccinations efforts, especially reaching hard-to-reach populations as well. So it was an amazing experience, and I learned so much.
I can imagine, with all that was going on during COVID.
Yes.
Now, you wrote I was reading a lot of your LinkedIn blogs, which I really enjoyed, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But you specifically mentioned that because of the work you did for the California Department of Public Health during that COVID awareness campaign with Census and amplification, that you learned a lot about the way the government manages DEI, and that there's a lot that the corporate world can learn from the government. Like they are a role model for how
Yes.
to better do it. Can you tell us a little bit?
I was so impressed, like sitting in these meetings with, people from the state of California at different levels of the government. You always think, government people really, we always have this perception, right? We didn't have to, they understand multicultural. They allocate dollars to multicultural communities like I've never seen. You don't have to sell anything. The efforts that they made on multicultural marketing are unheard of. And for COVID specifically, not just Spanish language, the Asian markets, different languages, advertising, community relations, the power of local communities, understanding, the power of research and putting the money where exactly the research is and really listening to that research, right? So I wish, that was one of the ideas. I would love to do a panel and bring, some of the folks that worked on the COVID campaign to really explain to corporate America how, DEI is basically is the day to day, is what they do, and it's not even something to talk about. It's part of the reality, So you just talk about it like you talk about it, like okay, this is what we're gonna do, and it's a day to day conversation. It's not a plan. It's not a strategy. It's the day to day.
But do you think that the California model is like replicated in other states, or it just because it's California a little more?
Obviously, California is always ahead of the game, right? When it comes to marketing and innovation, right? And we have seen a lot of the work in COVID. Is award winning in terms of public relations. RSC, which is the leading agency, the prime contractor that secured the contract, they have won awards already with this campaign. So yes, we see that California is innovative in its approach and the understanding, and they call it cultural empathy or cultural empathy. I think there is a particular word, and actually I wanna go back to that. Where there is a true understanding for equity and creating campaigns that reach the vulnerable communities. I honestly don't know if other states function the same way, but I think companies and other states really can learn from this model, because it was truly enlightening, inspiring, and so interesting for me to learn, which I haven't seen corporate America do.
So if you get a call from a client in Florida or Texas, or a state that's a little more red, and they wanted to do something similar, what could what tricks did you learn that you could apply in states where they're not as far along?
Well, I think research is certainly formative research, and research that you do, but then at the end of the day you implement, right? How many times have we seen research, that CMOs or brand managers, they know, but then they don't act on it because they don't have the resources or they don't have the budget, right? So formative research is really a big component. The power of community organizations. We have all seen, community relations have always played a big role, but in terms of being true ambassadors of local communities, when you have big issues, in this case, vaccination efforts, making sure, to demystify, the importance of vaccinations, for example, and educate people on safety measures. The role that community organizations have is crucial, is huge. And sometimes we don't see that, right? So when it comes to empowering local communities, engaging them, making sure that they are the face of the community. For example, a strong community and grassroots initiative plays a huge role in these local markets. And again, you're talking about engaging the masses, right? Engaging a lot of people here. Our goal with the vaccination campaign was to really reach those local communities, those local zip codes, right? We were very granular in our strategy. So I think that's when you really go local and go hyper local, and you go into the role of community organizations and the local media, even the radio station that reaches farm workers. We want to go to that station. We want to go to that local little station that speaks in indigenous languages, where we want to go there, right? So that was the big learning, really, how local and how granular can you go, and you can.
Cool. So that leads me to Blue PR. So you were at Census, you launched application, worked on this award-winning campaign, and then at some point you decided to step away from Census and launch Blue. What was the thinking there?
Well, once you're an entrepreneur, you're always an entrepreneur, I said, right? And I think it's always great, at my age, right? To have maybe one last opportunity to create something and to create something. I think I love the opportunity to come up with ideas and create something new. And I'm here for Blue PR, and I call it power in relationships. I think it's really the ability to really use and merchandise all the relationships that I established over the years, whether it's, relationships with clients and relationships with communities, relationships with, media, with influencers, and really putting all of that together for me, and not just representing clients, but I think I've seen in this new phase in my career, I like the idea of, helping other companies also achieve their goals. For example, I'm working on a project right now with a movie premiere with Sony and a production company in Tokyo, and I'm working with Marcela Cuenzo, who is the leading person in Hispanic movies PR. And we're working together on a project, then I'm bringing different professionals, different, again, relationships that I had over the years, to offer that to clients, so I'm establishing a different type of model, a model where I can tap into people that I know that are really good at what they do and create opportunities for clients, right? I'm working in Latin America, for example, right now with different clients, establishing relationships in different countries and working with different colleagues. And again, it's that idea of tapping into these powerful relationships, that I was able to establish and offer a solution to clients.
Okay, and so I imagine it's reminding you of your early days with RL when you first launched.
Yes.
Going back to the roots approach.
Going back to the roots in a different way, right? Mm-hmm. In a different way, I think,
a lot more experience. Yeah.
Well, when I launched, when I was 25, I had all this energy and I still have, right? But I was always very good pitching media, and that was my strength, when I started, back in the day. And now it's different, now it's more strategy, more thinking about the business, bringing the right people together. Who can be my team for this particular project? Who can I hire that is going to be the visionary and is going to able to really execute?
When I was reading the feedback from some of your friends or colleagues on LinkedIn, there was a consistent theme where everybody was saying, Roxana's a visionary leader and a great team builder. She knows how to pick the right people for the right project. Tell me about that process, because there's a lot of leadership wisdom there that we can share, for anyone watching, this webinar. Tell me about that. How did you become such a good leader and team builder, at such an early age? So.
I think I learned when I started my company. I was fascinated to always have people that know more than me. So because I started so young, I remember that leaders such as Molly Ireland, who was my boss at Hill & Knowlton, and Bob Oliver, who at the time was an NBC reporter, and he was part of my team. I hired those people that knew so much, and they inspired me, and I learned so much from them. So I realized early on that you're not the one to know everything. I think the key is to align yourself with actually people that know more than you. And you shouldn't be afraid of that, right? That they're going to take your clients, or, they're going to go on their own. That never really happened, to me. And the idea here is developing and nurturing those relationships over the years and giving them opportunities and making sure that you bring the right team, to help you, and that the work is great. So for me, it's about the work always. Who can I bring that is going to provide the best results for the project, right? And who's going to be different and who's going to be trustworthy. And those are the relationships that I established over the years, right? So that's how I build teams. I build teams, the people that work for me, they have to be, good, reliable. They have to be strong thinkers, independent thinkers too. And I think that's important. I'm not the one that is going to hold your hand 24/7. You need solid, smart people that can work on their own as well.
Okay. Do you ever make mistakes as like you thought it was going to be, great for the team, and then you realize early on like this is not going to work out? And are you quick to, let that person go? Just curious.
A good question. At the very beginning, when I had RLPR, it was very difficult for me to let go of people. I couldn't. So I always had other people do it, which was silly. But then over the years you learn, and of course you make mistakes. I let go of people that I shouldn't have in the past, for different.
Well, the other way around. Sometimes you should have kept them. Oh.
And sometimes you act too fast. You act on impulse, or you let your personal stuff get in the way without problem solve or without addressing conflicts. And I think over the years, I learned that the importance of communication. Sometimes it's really difficult to have these frank conversations, right? When we talk about difficult conversations. And I think it's really important, to just address it when it happens, right? So those learnings come over the years and with experience. There's no way that when you launch your company, when you are 2 or 3 years running your company, you learn those things. Those things, you learn the hard lessons by working with a lot of people, different personalities, Yeah.
And that leads me to a question that I had for you about, I want to go back a little bit to your early years in Argentina. One thing I when I was researching you, I realized that you got like your doctorate degree in public relations. Like you must have been like 19 or 20 in Argentina when you got your doctorate. Like I'm like, wow, man, I don't know too many people that got their PhD at such a young age.
In Argentina, the whole career of public relations is called licenciatura en relaciones públicas, right? So that's what you study. So it's not a major, it's not like a minor in PR, or it's not journalism with an emphasis in public relations. Here it's more like a master's degree, I believe. But in Argentina, it's like a whole career. That's what you study. So you study psychology, you study sociology, you study group dynamics, you study advertising, business. So all of that is in a 5-year program, right? So that's why it's called like a doctorate in PR in a way, because you become an expert in public relations. So when I came here to the US and I started to intern at a small PR agency, I was more than prepared. I was totally competing with people from here.
That was my question. Like, how useful was the Argentine education in the U.S.? Like was it comparable? And it sounds like it was a really good school.
It was incredible, and actually, it was better than a lot of the students that I've seen. That are graduating from different universities, because they never get a full-on training in PR. Like we had to study companies and do case studies on companies, doing PR programs, going to different, doing internal PR, doing external PR. I mean, we studied it was a comprehensive that I have not seen here. I have not seen it.
To this day. Wow.
Again, I need to see, USC has done a lot, and I think on a master level at the APR certificate that you get with PRSA is different, right? But I'm talking about a major, like a bachelor's degree. I haven't seen a bachelor program in public relations that is as rich as the one that I received in Argentina. I have not.
That reminds me, a few years back, I was on the board of the Miami Hispanic Public Relations Association chapter, and I was the college recruitment. I signed up for that. Volunteer role, and then I was going to all these universities in South Florida, and I would get a chance to speak to the PR students, and I remember asking, who knows what a press release distribution service is, and a lot of them were, so I kind of assumed, like, hey, I run a wire, every PR person knows what a wire service is, and I was surprised. So it's very much an educational sale for us as a wire service,
Yeah.
But
No, and
I don't assume anything anymore. I don't assume anything that even if you have a PR degree, I don't assume that you know certain things. So,
and one of the things that I saw here too early on is that the hands-on experience of working in companies, for example, I worked throughout my career. And that's something that is very popular in Latin America, because you live at home with your parents. And I used to go to school at night. So I will work during the day
mhm.
and I will work in a research company. And then I go to school from 7 to 10 p.m. And I will work until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and I will go to the university at 7 p.m. So that was my day. That was my life. I was always, in more in the work environment and trying to understand and bring it to practice. This whole idea of working for companies and learning early on. That was a big thing that I did. And I think that's so important for young people to just have internships and learn and work for companies in what they want to do. Not forget working at a restaurant or just go work in companies. Ask for internships. If you want to be in PR, work in PR, work in advertising, work in communications. Don't work on anything else.
You mentioned that you worked for a research firm.
Yes.
How useful was that experience when you came to the US and when you launched RL? Just having that research background.
Yeah, it was a company called Editorial de Comunicaciones Públicas, and they used to sell in the day these big guides, to companies, to private companies and government institutions, where you will have all this information available about all kinds of things, right? So we will have to do the research, and at the time it was phone research. We didn't have computers, so we would have to call and find out all kinds of information. Like people will call and say, I need to have a list of the top ambassadors in Argentina that are going to be traveling to the US, for example. And we have to put together that list, for this particular client, right? And some of the information will be printed in those type of encyclopedias, type of projects, programs, or other times we will have to just use the typewriter, to do it. It was.
You had to be Google. You had to be your own Google.
There was no Google. We didn't have computers. It was all typewriters and phone. So you rely on your phone skills. You have to, understand how to speak on the phone and how to ask what you want and making sure that they give you the information. So all those skills were really valuable, for sure.
Okay. Roxana, I want to ask you bigger picture stuff right now. A couple of questions about the industry. What trends you're seeing right now, that and how you can harness those trends. Just a question that could help the PR professionals that are watching this, just from your vantage point.
Well, I think it's interesting. Like I learned that in the government, for example, and whether you're working, for a nonprofit or a government institution, like all the experience that I've had in the last 2 years, public relations and traditional public relations continues to play a huge role. And that was so eye-opening to me. When in the world of influencers, which is continues to be very important, of stands and integrated marketing and social media and TikTok, there is still a huge role for public relations. And I think that was the inspiration for me to launch Blue PR, because, at the end of the day, the discipline of public relations is critical. Is more important than ever. But if you ask me about the trends, I see PR never going away. I see the traditional PR discipline continues to flourish, obviously with innovation, obviously with AI, that is going to transform the way we do business. But I think the role of PR is fundamentally important in our growth, right? In the marketing discipline. And we see traditional media also continue to play, an important role, right? And in shaping opinion, in shaping public opinion. And, so it's great that we have this, let me see if I can explain it correctly, right? We have this very, discipline rooted in in strong writing, in relationships, in building media, in building connections, in really understanding marketing, understanding strategy, and then evolving with the new technologies, right? But that's why the discipline never goes away, right? It never goes away. So I think for us, for PR practitioners, the future is, learning about all these other things and how to really infuse your PR experience into these new disciplines, right? Am I explaining correctly?
Yeah. And so along those lines, I noticed you mentioned TikTok a lot. You seem to be a big fan of TikTok.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of how recently you've used, if you don't mind sharing, if it's not like, confidential information, client information, but just some ideas about how you're using traditional techniques with TikTok influencers, for example, and have you done anything like that recently?
It's really interesting because I think everybody wants good content, and I think TikTok influencers, they love good ideas and they're very creative, and obviously they're gonna use their own, they're gonna do their own thing, right? So, for example, we just finished a big promotion with Argentine beef. We created this week of Argentine beef here in Los Angeles, representing the Argentine Beef Institute, which is a commodity board, from Argentina, trying to increase visibility about Argentine beef in the U.S. And and of course, we invited a lot of TikTok influencers, regular influencers, to come and experience, the whole idea of eating beef. But everything that we gave them was our content, in a sense, right? So we produce really good videos, and we had good written materials, and we had really, interesting facts, and it was interesting to see a lot of these TikTokers and bloggers using our content too, and merging it, with their own stuff, and making it their own, right? So that's what I'm saying. Whatever we do is always going to be good. PR always is going to have a role in this new evolution, right? Whether it's TikTok today or Instagram or new platforms, will come in. Our understanding of the messaging and making sure that everything gets across positively, right? Creating this positive influence and a positive awareness about our clients and about our products. It's so important.
Okay. And in terms of your optimism about PR in general, does that also carry over to specifically the Hispanic PR industry? Any insights you can share?
I think so. Insights what it was really interesting, because I talk a lot about this, with many of my friends in the industry. Obviously PR, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, we have the flexibility of switching, right? And we don't do just Hispanic, we do general market, we do other, and again, who is the general market right now, right? So we do these cross-cultural strategies, with clients, and it's interesting, like Bad Bunny was in Coachella and he was asking, to the 100,000 people that were there, do you want me to sing in Spanish or do you want me to sing in English? And he says, no, Spanish, Interesting, because I think Spanish was always part of this country and it's never going to go away, right? So when you look at, it's never going to go away. Yes, we're going to do more things in English, but we're going to be doing things in both. It's going to go back and forth depending on what you do and depending on what you're doing. The language, is so interesting to me, because a lot of scholars and a lot of people that have studied linguistics over the years, they had said, that Spanish is never going to go away.
It's like the second largest language in the United States right now. Yeah, interesting fact. I want to go back for a second to, okay. Since you're a Latina PR pioneer, who are the women that most inspired you when you were coming up, and what advice can you share with women who are starting their careers in PR and who are considering launching their own agencies?
That's a good idea. So many women have inspired me, I think. I remember, when I started, all the ladies that were part of the HPRA group, the Hispanic Public Relations Association in Los Angeles.
Which I believe it started in LA.
It started in LA. All these ladies, they were amazing. Jackie, and I can't remember her last name, was somebody that I admired so much back in the day. I remember Maria Contreras Sweet with Hope when she was one of the the presidents of Hope, the group Hispanas Organized for Political Equality. And I remember seeing her talking and bringing her little kids. And Patricia Perez, who has been with BPE for so many years. These are all women that, that I learned, and they're my friends, and I grew up with, right? In a sense, right? Because I was so young when I came here, and I learned so much from them. Then on the advertising side, look at Norma Orsi, look at oh my God, I'm forgetting all the names right now. I'm forgetting all the names, but anyway, there's all these amazing ladies that at one time or another I learned to work with them, and I work with them. So whether we share clients together or we grabbed a cocktail together and I happen to have conversations, and I want to see the younger people. I want to learn where the younger players are too. For me, it's so exciting to see the young minds and what they can create. So I hope we're seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs and women launching their companies. There's nothing more that I would love to see that.
Any advice for Latina PR professionals that are thinking of launching an agency today?
I think really working on yourself is critical. I think understanding who you are as a leader and doing a lot of work on yourself. I think that's very important, right? Whatever obstacles you have as a person, as an individual, learning what those obstacles are and try to overcome them, right? Whether it's with therapy or with coaching or learning your leadership style. For example, I learned early on that I'm not the process oriented type of leader, right? So if I'm going to build a team or if I'm going to build an executive team, I need to bring people that are going to be complementing my skills, right? I'm more the creative type of person, right? The big picture type of thinking idea. And I can also execute, obviously, but I need, we need those process oriented folks that are going to help ground me all the time. And not neither one of them is bad or not. I think is really understanding your leadership style too, and the type of people that you need to have around you. Having that awareness early on is really important, because if you have a bunch of creative minds and then you don't have anybody who can execute because you don't understand your own power or your own secret power, then that is going to put you behind too. That's one of the things.
You can be like really creative, but if you don't have a way of executing that creativity,
exactly,
and making it concrete,
manifesting. You have 5 people in your team, right? And you are the leader, you're the CEO, right? So let's say you are assuming you're different than me. You're the hands-on, the one that likes that likes to work and get it done. Okay, so who's going to help you bring the business? If you're not if you're not a good salesperson, for example, you need to have somebody that is going to help you grow, right? So you need to have those type of people in your team. If that's not your strength, and that's okay if it's not your strength, you just have to surround yourself with people that can help.
Complementary, yeah.
And similarly, the other way around, like if I'm good in sales, then I need to have people who can execute the work when I bring it in, right? So it's just having that understanding of who you are as a leader is very important.
Roxana, do you have time for like 3 or 4 more questions?
Yes.
I want to respect your time,
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm happy. I know this is edited, but I can't believe I had a car accident.
You survived the car accident.
Am I talking?
I was thinking like maybe it's that Mercury retrograde thing, but then I looked it up and it starts 2 days from now. So I'm like, okay, what's the Mercury?
It starts on the 21st. No, and it wasn't my fault. This lady, like completely. Yeah. I have a witness on video that saw it too. So. And I took the video for my kids too, because my kids.
This interview almost didn't happen, people.
No.
Thank God, we're here. Okay. Okay, when you launched Blue PR in January, I read the press release, and there was a quote there that really rang out to me. You said, "Public relations continues to be at its core the culmination of thousands of years of human evolution." So my question for you was, can you share more about this idea of PR's impact on society and on human evolution? And how does this noble vision of PR influence your strategies when coming up with an effective PR campaign? That's a loaded question, but
that's a loaded question. Yeah. Well, because I'm a big believer in people. For me, I love, and again, it sounds corny, right? But I think for me, PR practitioners and PR folks, we have to love people. We have to love who they are as individuals. We have to love, history and transformation, and always thinking that, what good can this individual contribute, right? So when you talk about public relations, really it's relationships with different audiences, right? Public relations, relationships with different publics, right? So I think that's why it's that, PR stood the test of time, right? If you think about it. And for me, there is something magical about bringing that, back into my practice. It's really understanding that, connecting a brand or connecting a client, with the true essence of people, right? Because they're not consumers, they're people, they're individuals, right? That have needs and have desires and have dreams. For me, that's what I meant with that. That's why I called it power. Power in relationships, because individuals have power, people are powerful, and if I can make that, transition, and whether it's a creative idea that is rooted in that, right, or a campaign that is rooted into, the values that people are bringing, to a particular project or to a particular idea, that's what I mean by that.
I share that love of people, and I think loving people is a superpower in business, especially. Like I hear some people sometimes like, man, I couldn't do that business because I'd have to deal with people. And I'm like,
I love, and it's funny because I just love talking to strangers. I talk to people all the time. And even my kids tell me, Mom, you just have to stop. You talk to people all the time. But I learn so much. You learn so much by talking to strangers and talking to people. And for me, that's the essence of what we do, is building that relationship, is building connections, and, in trying to understand motivations, and you learn psychology. And I think in this business, psychology is huge. It's another superpower. Understanding what is going through, understanding what they're facing as people. At the end of the day, we're all working together. We're all individuals trying to problem solve every day and trying to create something and make an impact in our lives and taking care of our families. We all have the same goals, So for me, it's going back to building those relationships and strengthening these relationships and making true connections. So, it doesn't sound super creative necessarily, but for me is kind of coming home after all these years of working in this business.
Thank you, Roxana. I two more questions. I when I was reading your blog post on LinkedIn, I found myself like hooked. I was like, this is, I had a journalism prof. Manny and I both had the same journalism professor, and I once asked him when I was in college. I said, "How do you know when you've written something good?" He goes, "When you can't put it down." He answered immediately, and I never forgot that. Que paz descanse. He passed away many years ago. But he said, when you can't put it down, and I was like, I can't put these down. This is really good stuff. Like Roxana's writing is really good. You're like, I can't.
Really? Did you like my contemplations? I love it.
Yeah.
I'm writing. Yeah. Go ahead.
And I want to ask you about that because you seem like there's a real sense of fun and joy in your writing, and in this interview too, I sense it coming out of you. But you seem that you found a good balance between the sharing personal experience, educating, and entertaining. So it just hooks you on so many levels. So can you share more about that and what advice you would have for you hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk all the time about create content and on every platform, content. So you're doing it, and then other people don't do it, or they're afraid to do it, or what can you share about that?
I always love writing. It's so funny that, when I was in Argentina, writing, it was so important to me. I used to write articles, and I always, when I had interesting points of view about things, and I just loved it. And then, when I was doing PR, it's so funny. I became afraid of writing a little bit because I had so many people doing the writing for me, So I had all these VPs and doing all, putting all this great English together. And I was edited, but I was kind of intimidated, So I kind of didn't write for a long time.
Wow.
And and my colleagues can tell you, my friends can tell you, I was being kind of afraid. You do it first, and then I'll edit it, So I was kind of like, I'm gonna wait. And then the pandemic hit, and I had all these points of view about different things that I saw. I remember my first post was about financial institutions and how they were not helping small businesses, and remember the PPP loans and how the big companies were getting them and the small businesses were not getting them. And it was something that really I was like mad about. I was like, man, I need to write something about that. So that was my first one. And
On LinkedIn.
it was on LinkedIn. I didn't have the content page yet on LinkedIn. And then I was on TV talking about it because I told my friend, I feel really strong. I said, well, Roxana, I think you need to be on TV. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because you know what? It's not right. So sometimes that's what motivates me is when I feel really strongly about something. When I started going on TikTok and I found all these fun TikTokers, and I was totally getting into TikTok. Then I wrote about it because it was fun for me. Like I'm an older woman being on TikTok, but I find it fascinating and I love it. And I learned so much from it. A lot of the content comes from TikTok for me today. And, then you have different experiences. Some are more personal. Like, for example, the latest post was about 1985, the movie that.
I read that one, yeah. Uh-huh. And it brought you back to being a little girl and these guys showing up at the door and you and your mom to like a jail.
We went to jail. And you know what is funny? Like so many people, I got so many comments and messages from people that remember that. And they, and again, I love the feedback because I don't expect people. I mean, I write it on LinkedIn. I don't write anywhere else, but it's fun to see if I can help someone with that content or if someone finds it entertaining or informative, then it's cool, but I do it for me too, and I do it for me because I love it. I realized that, and I was writing every 2 weeks and now more is once a month. And then with the whole World Cup thing, I was like so much fun. And that's when I wrote about creatives, because I realized that during the World Cup, Argentina came up with such amazing creative ideas. And I wrote a whole thing about it. And then I acknowledge a lot of the Argentine creatives that have been in this business.
Right. You listed a lot of them.
Listed a lot.
And then at the end, it's like if I left anybody out, if you know another one,
there's a couple of people that were left out, but I need to write about PR, Argentine PR folks, because I wrote more about the creatives, about advertising.
And that was one of my questions too. What is it about Argentines that has made them so successful in marketing, advertising, public relations? Because for years I've been hearing that Miami ad agencies were outsourcing their web development, their ad development, even their TV productions or either to Argentina or they were hiring Argentine creatives and bringing them to the US. What is it about Argentines that makes them so great at marketing?
I know, right? Funny because I think, we are so used to living, and I realized that in this World Cup, we're so used to living in the moment, in being spontaneous in our way of living. And like, if you look at what happened with World Cup and people that travel to Qatar, some people sold their car, wow. They quit their jobs, to go. And if you ask a regular person here, will you do that? Probably not, right? Probably, no, I'm going to think it through first and see if I want to do that. But we're very passionate people, we're very passionate. We live in the moment. We like to create out of nothing. And I think, if you look at the inflation, it's a big dichotomy, right, in Argentina. So on the one hand, you have these highly educated people. The education is amazing, right? Argentina has amazing advertising schools too. Same as PR, right?
Right.
We have a very strong education, right, when it comes to this marketing discipline. So you have highly trained people, and then we just kind of create out of nothing because sometimes they're not going to give it to you and you just do it yourself, right? And in a country that has high inflation, that now is like 100% inflation, and the government is a disaster, and there's always corruption everywhere, but somehow you manage to survive that. A lot of people manage to survive. And for that, you need creativity. You need to figure out different ways of doing things. And I think that's in our culture, that's in our DNA.
Cool.
Our DNA to do that, to be innovative and to improvise and to, live in the moment. And that's creativity. You have to come up with ideas on the spot.
Okay, thank you, Roxana. Two last questions, and I think they're quick. Back to your writing. My second question on that topic was, are you planning to maybe write a book now that you're kind of back in the writing mode?
I don't know if I always thought about putting something together about PR anecdotes, like fun PR stuff that has happened over the years. I think that would be kind of fun to do. But right now I'm happy with my contemplations and see what happens after that. I know I don't have a big audience, but that's okay.
Okay, and then I skipped one question about when you were talking about team building. What do you look for in a great PR person? How can you tell this person is cut out for PR? They're born for that. They've got the talent, the raw talent, or the training for this, or what is your sixth sense about that?
Well, I think I like to talk about, experienced PR people that I hire or junior PR people that I hire, right? So, because there's two different sets of professionals and things that I look for, right? So I think in the younger people, definitely is the commitment, the desire to learn, and the smart. You have to be smart and be bilingual. For me, that's very important, ideally, And somebody that is curious, somebody that wants to learn and read, that likes to read books and, can talk about trends and can talk about what's happening on TikTok. And, those are the questions that I ask, right? It's somebody that has to be connected somehow. If it's socially, with media, they have to have connections, they have to be connected to something. And in the more experience, I think is a lot of the same things. You're looking for commitment, you're looking for, smart and strategy, somebody that is available to me. I'm very fast, for example, when I work and, I need people to respond to me quickly, they need to be very proactive. So there are things that I look for that they have to be good to work for me, and being responsive is one of them, because I work on multiple things at the same time. So I need people to be responsive, and be available and be committed and, and just have passion too, for what they're doing and enjoy it and good people, right? You have to be good people, a good person.
Right.
And I just got in case somebody that I know that she's facing challenges and I don't know what they are. And I know, for example, that, she's really good professional. She's somebody super strong. And I know she's struggling, and it's good also sometimes to acknowledge that and to tell them, listen, I know you might be going through things, but I know you're good. Sometimes they want to hear that, because they may not be facing a good time in their lives, and they feel we all have our share of personal, stories and, sacrifices or things that we have to go through, right? So we have to acknowledge that as leaders, like, listen, I know you're good, I got you. So take your time or take time off or do whatever you need to do.
Cool. That's reminds me of the phrase you used earlier, empathy. You said, oh my God, cultural empathy.
And I want to say that there is another word that I said the other way too.
Okay. Roxana, I forgot to ask you, during all your years of public relations, what has been one of your favorite campaigns? If you could just share 2 or 3 sentences on one of your favorite campaigns. I know you don't want to leave anybody out, but one that you really enjoyed and just felt like you did a great job on.
I think one of the most successful campaigns, which was difficult to do too, there's so many. The most difficult ones, okay, the one that I enjoyed the most, the one that comes to mind was when we launched the Mexican national team uniforms from Mexico for the US, working with Nike. That was a complex project to do, and it was so successful. It was great. We were in Mexico doing satellites and doing videos and shooting it here and, making it a huge announcement. And we only had a small part to play because Nike Mexico did all the work. But it was a lot of fun. With Nike, we work on a lot of cool projects and a lot of cool launches.
That was with Sportivo or RL? Sportivo, yeah.
Sportivo. Actually, yeah, it was with Sportivo. It was right before. Well, I had Nike before Sportivo, so I can't remember if it was before or after. But yeah, and then we got milk. We worked on so many projects with the California Milk Processors Board. It was a client that we had for 20 years. So
that was a big client for you for our at RL, yeah. Right.
Yeah, big client, and we work on so many projects. The most recent one before I sold the company was called California Thrives on Milk, and we did a documentary, and that was really nice. We went into local communities and talking to nonprofits and talking about the importance of eating healthy for kids. So we did a whole film with it. And then we did donations, we did refrigerator donations for parents that needed it. So it was a beautiful campaign. And then we did some fun stuff too, over the years. I mean, so many. And then some controversial ones too, as well, that we were a part of. So
something that was controversial before you took it on, or it became a controversy because of the campaign you did?
Well, it was an advertising campaign that actually Good with Silver Finger Partners did for Got Milk, and we never anticipated that it was going to be backlash at all, and nobody saw it coming. It was about PMS and how milk can help improve the symptoms of PMS, which is proven. But the campaign was really funny. It had a bunch of guys talking about women and honey, I'm home, with flowers. It was just, it was really funny. And some women took it the wrong way. And so you see, the coverage was really good when it launched, and then it started getting bad and bad and bad and bad. And it was, we created tons of PR, but it was so stressful. It was really stressful. Then another favorite campaign to mention. Another favorite campaign was with Miller. It was one of my first clients with Miller Brewing Company. It was Solo con Invitación, the mystery concerts, by invitation only. We did a series of concerts. That was a lot of fun. With different
mystery concerts, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So organizing everything and getting all the media to cover it, and it was a lot of fun. So so many.
Cool. I could talk to you for hours about all the different campaigns and the lessons learned in each one. And I hope to bring you back like in October for or September for Hispanic Heritage Month. Have you other, PR professionals, Hispanic PR pros talking about different campaigns. Any last words about the industry that you want to share, about Blue PR, how people can reach you, the types of clients you're looking for? Just feel free to plug away.
Yeah. So my website is under construction, so I don't have a website yet because it's being built.
But it's gonna be bluepublicrelations.com.
My email is roxana@bluepublicrelations.com. And it's all about collaboration. I think I'm so open right now to really, explore different opportunities in different categories. I'm working in technology a lot right now, which is something that I haven't fully worked on in the past, right? So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the government accounts because you learn so much, from issues that are affecting communities, and how you can help and give back. So social impact is also something that we're working with. I'm working on a few projects with the state of California right now, so I'm excited about that. And yeah, so I'm totally open to continue collaborating with professionals, and if anybody needs any advice of someone that has learned the hard lessons of owning your own agency over the years, feel free to give me a ring.
Cool. Roxana, thank you for your time and for your insights and your wisdom.
You're well. Hopefully it was.
I really enjoyed chatting with you today and interviewing you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Bye. Take care, okay?
Yeah, I know. I will. Bye-bye.
Watch your back a little bit. All right, bye. See ya.